This video is addressed to Royal Sciences LLC in regards to their recent breakthroughs in experimental technology, with the goal of creating an ideal in which never occurred and was never. The is greatly thankful to Royal Sciences lead project director, Dr. for granting access to, even if only briefly, the required for replicating and peer-reviewing the results that Royal Sciences has recently published. While the was successful in replicating the initial results published by Royal Sciences for 3 separate, each one exhibited considerable destabilization following the process. While Royal Sciences has proposed a possible solution to this, the has some concerns regarding the exact consequences of this prophecy, as Dr. has dubbed it. The following will outline the current experimental framework devised by Royal Sciences and offer a possible alternate solution to the destabilization problem. With each coming chapter, it becomes more and more clear that Deltarune and Undertale have a deep connection to each other, one that spans much farther than just familiar characters. These games are their own separate yet interconnected worlds that characters are able to travel between and enact plans across. The sands we see in Deltarune is very likely the same sands we see in Undertale. A big question that this leaves us with is where exactly these worlds stand in relation to each other. Did one come before the other? Did one create the other? Or do they simply coexist? This question, along with all the implications that come with it, is what this video is aimed at answering. And in doing so, I believe we will come to one of the most complete interpretations of not just Deltarune, but the whole story that Toby Fox has created and has been alluding to since that fateful dream. To begin, let's lay out everything we've already been given. Currently, most of the relevant information connecting both Deltarune and Undertale surrounds 2 characters, Sans and Gaster, each seeming to play a different role in this connection with varying importance. I'll start with Sans, as while he doesn't give much supporting evidence in regard to this theory, his situation does help build context behind the true nature connecting Deltarune and Undertale. Firstly, as I've already mentioned, the sands we see in Deltarune is very likely the same sands we see in Undertale. This is because of a multitude of reasons, some more subtle than others. The most recent of them being the Don't Forget note. In Chapter 5 of Deltarune, Sans obtains the same exact Don't Forget note that can be found in his lab in Undertale, the note with 3 smiling people on it that was speculated to be Chris, Susie, and Ralsei, which has now been confirmed. This proves that Sans traveled from Deltarune to Undertale. Now, this raises some questions. How did he do this? Why did he do this? Well, the answer of how can safely be answered in the same room, where we find a strange machine that's broken. It can safely be assumed that this machine is what allowed for this travel, as Sans in Undertale says that he's been unable to return to some place, which is particularly not the surface. Where Sans wants to return to is Deltarune. He's making an effort to return to his life back in Deltarune that he left behind. But unfortunately, the machine he would need to return is broken. So then, why did he even leave in the first place? A common interpretation was that Sans left Deltarune because of the roaring. However, this has some problems. Firstly, if he really left because of some world-ending event, why would he be trying to go back? And secondly, Chapter 5 tells us that he's already planning to leave, despite the fact that he's probably at least a whole chapter too early. Not to mention, would this not require the world being destroyed by the roaring to be the single canon ending to Deltarune? All this being said, Sans did not leave Deltarune for Undertale because of the roaring. So then why? Well, he actually somewhat just tells us why up front in one of the most underutilized lore drops we have, that being the fight against Sans in Undertale's genocide route. Our report showed an anomaly in the time-space continuum, timelines jumping left and right, stopping and starting, until suddenly everything ends. That's your fault, isn't it? I'm sure you can agree that this is a lot. Sans and whoever else he's referring to when he says our reports are studying this time-space continuum, and there's some anomalous entity that's messing with these timelines. All this weird terminology might seem confusing, but really it's all just special diegetic names to describe simple things. This anomaly is the player, which has the power to save, load, and reset, to manipulate time, to mess with the timelines of the game as Sans describes it. He directly says that the anomaly is our fault, and refers to the anomaly as if it were a person with emotions. Also, by the way, the anomaly isn't just players doing the genocide route. We know this because he says he tried to persuade the player with the stuff that we do outside of the genocide route, so he sees us as an anomaly regardless. After all, every player in some way performs these anomalous activities when we play through the game by saving and loading. What I take away from this is that each playthrough of Undertale, and Deltarune as you will see, each save file is its own timeline that exists diegetically in this encompassing region called time-space. And Sans and some other people, which I'll get into, have access to this time-space and are able to observe and study each player's actions on this higher level. This is why I believe Sans left Deltarune to go to Undertale, because of, as he calls it, an anomaly in the time-space continuum. We know that Sans is particularly familiar with these anomalies, which again is us the player. He says that he's familiar with our type, and takes responsibility to try and guide our actions to fit his interests. This is why he's new in town in both Undertale and Deltarune. In time-space, he appears wherever the player appears. He travels to timelines where these anomalies show up so that he can study them and guide them for some larger operation. Now, this is nice and all, that there's apparently some operation Sans participated in to study timelines and us as the player, but whatever happened, which I will get into, this operation is over. It failed. The machine Sans and his colleagues use to access this time-space is broken now. He's given up trying to go back. Which brings me to the piece of evidence that vaguely reveals the goal of this whole operation. In response to a question about whether the true pacifist ending of Undertale was really the best ending, Toby Fox replied in a now deleted tweet saying, "You've all seen the happiest outcome. Neither of them could fix the machine, no matter how hard they tried. No one can. Hi, I'm Toby Fox, creator of Undertale." What this tells us is that this now broken machine, and by extension the whole operation studying time-space and the anomalies that manipulate it, were all aimed at achieving a better outcome to Undertale than the pacifist route. This is, or I guess was in Undertale's context, the goal of Sans and his colleagues, to achieve an ending to Undertale even better than just monster kind being free from the underground, like we see in the true pacifist route. Now this begs the question, what could they have been aiming for that was even better than the pacifist ending? Well, what did the pacifist ending leave unsolved? Sure, the pacifist ending is nice, but it doesn't solve everything. There are tragedies in Undertale's past that can't be solved in its present, namely the death of Asriel and Kara, not to mention all the past humans that fell down. What's the root cause of all of this? How could all of this be avoided? Well, what if instead of freeing monsters from the underground, they were never even trapped there in the first place? What if the human and monster war never occurred in the first place? Could you imagine that? Monsters living on the surface with humans in harmony? Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. This operation that Sans participated in to try and achieve an outcome to Undertale that's better than the pacifist route is exactly what we're playing through in Deltarune. Deltarune is Undertale if the human and monster war never happened, and all the tragedies that resulted from it never happened. Monsters are living free on the surface, in what can be assumed to be at peace with humanity. This is exactly why Deltarune is called Deltarune. The prophecy of Deltarune in Undertale is ultimately a prophecy that foresees that monster kind will be freed from the underground, and that is exactly what we see in Deltarune, hence why it is called Deltarune. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a perfect answer, at least yet. If Deltarune truly is some plan by Sans and his colleagues to create a timeline where the human and monster war never happened, then why is there this whole new conflict between the balance of light and dark? Well, as you'll see, this new conflict is a direct byproduct of the alteration process to turn an Undertale timeline into a Deltarune timeline. However, this part of the operation isn't Sans' job. It's a job of one of his colleagues. This is where Gaster comes in. Gaster is the second main link that chains Deltarune and Undertale together. He is the one responsible for altering Undertale timelines into Deltarune timelines. The way he does this is actually relatively simple. He uses the exact same technique us, the player, and at times Flowey uses. That being, whoever holds the most determination is the one with the power to save and load, the one with the power to create timelines. We know that Gaster invented the determination extractor, so it's safe to say that in the period before Flowey was created and the player showed up, Gaster was the one with the power to create timelines, which explains how none of the previous humans to fall down before Frisk managed to make it out of the underground alive. They weren't the ones with the power to save and load, so when they died, they actually died. Sure, Alphys had to make her own extractor from Gaster's blueprints, implying that Gaster only designed it but never made it, but I think it makes more sense that he did make his own determination extractor and it was just destroyed in an event which I'll get back to. Tangent aside, Gaster had the ability to create timelines, to save and load, which is why he's the one that's actually managing our save files in Deltarune, because he's the one that's actually creating them. In fact, it's possible that the reason there's only 3 save files in Deltarune is because we're at the point in Undertale's time where only 3 humans have fallen down, which may give insight to when Gaster was performing these experiments. This is cool and all, however, just because Gaster can save and load doesn't explain how he was able to alter Undertale timelines to become Deltarune timelines. The answer to that is in Gaster's entry 17. In this entry, he describes darkness exactly how we see it in Deltarune, despite the fact that this takes place in Undertale. This makes sense given that Deltarune timelines are altered versions of Undertale timelines, so what we're witnessing here is the alteration process. But why would making a timeline of Undertale, where the human and monster war never happened, create darkness as a byproduct? To understand this, we have to understand what darkness in Deltarune even is. To directly quote Rousey, darkness, the magical darkness, is the ability to create an alternate view of reality through the lens of shadow. It is to remove the light which enforces reality, so that from that unknown state, your mind can overwrite it with its own interpretation of reality. With that in mind, it makes perfect sense that darkness is the byproduct of the alteration process of turning an Undertale timeline into a Deltarune timeline, to create an alternate view of Undertale's reality where the human and monster war never happened. This is why darkness is present in Deltarune. The way I see it is that, when you create such an immense change in a timeline, you destabilize its reality. In this destabilized state, the determination required to alter reality drops low enough so that anyone can alter reality. Anyone with determination can open a dark fountain. This opens the door for some unforeseen consequences. As you'd expect, if too many alterations to reality are made, if too many dark fountains are opened, it's possible that the whole reality of a timeline can be completely destroyed, which is what I believe is what happens in the Roaring. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if just no one opened any dark fountains, but the problem with that is, dark fountains are a means to bring one's dreams to life. And everyone has a dream. Notice that every main boss we've encountered so far, with one exception which I'll get into, fights against us just to defend their dark fountain, just to defend their dream. King thinks his fountain will rescue his kingdom from obscurity. Queen thinks her fountain will give Lightner's paradise. Tenna thinks his fountain will bring back his viewers, and Flowery thinks his fountain will give Asgore a perfect world. Can you really blame them for fighting for their dreams? Can you really blame them for helping create more darkness? Maybe, maybe not, but there's certainly someone you can blame. Someone that benefits from tricking these people into creating more darkness under the notion that they can achieve their dreams. While these characters have brought us closer to the Roaring, they don't actually want the true consequences of the Roaring. The same cannot be said for the Roaring Knight. Say what you want about the Knight's true motivations, but there's no denying that it is knowingly doing something wrong. It almost killed Tenna and Flowery, and is very likely going to kill Undyne and Asgore as well, along with anyone else it might get its hands on. The Knight doesn't make dark fountains to bring its dreams to life. It creates fountains to collapse these dreams into nightmares, creating so much darkness that instead of seeing the positive and neutral interpretations of dreams, the mind instead resorts to fearing the negative interpretations of nightmares, spawning literal incarnations of the fear of dark, which actually has a lot of implications about being afraid of the unknown, which I think is being set up for subversion, but that's not in the scope of this video. While the exact motivations of the Knight, and whoever may be working with them, is not entirely clear, as I've argued in my Lost Dreams theory, which I still stand by, I do believe the Knight, and likely whoever is controlling the Friends, to have some twisted gain from dreams being lost, Whether that be through causing the roaring or not, it involves creating more and more darkness, which brings Deltarune's reality closer and closer to being torn apart. All of this puts Gaster in a pretty hard spot. He needs to use determination to alter Undertale's reality to prevent the human and monster war along with all of its consequences, but if he does this, it would create darkness and destabilize reality, eventually to the point where it completely shatters. So after he uses darkness to create this ideal alternate reality, he needs to get rid of it. The only problem with that is, while he can create darkness, he can't get rid of it. You see, the power that makes all of this possible, determination, is the power to achieve an alternate idealized view of reality, a dream. The problem with determination is that it only goes in one direction, downwards in reality. Dreams are the goal of determination, and dreams are not real. So when you use determination, when you alter reality to become your dream, you are going downwards in reality, towards what is less and less real. As I've said before, reality is the extent to what one sees as not determined. If you determine something, if you achieve a dream, you are making it less real. When a lightener creates a dark fountain, they go down in reality to reach their dreams. When Gaster uses determination to create an alternate ideal timeline, he is shifting Undertale down in reality to become Deltarune, which makes it susceptible to completely collapsing as a reality. Now, there's more complications to how this all works, like with concepts of fear and hope, but that requires a more complex understanding of determination, which is not in the scope of this video. The bottom line is that Gaster cannot reverse this destabilization of Deltarune's reality, because he's on the same level of reality as it. So all he can do is shift it further downward with determination. All he can do is create more darkness. Just like a lightener can create more darkness, but they cannot seal that darkness. So what he needs to remove this darkness and restabilize Deltarune's reality is someone that is from a higher level of reality that uses determination to go downward to meet Deltarune's reality. And that's where we come in. This is why Sans is seeking out and guiding these anomalies, which is us the player. Because in order for their plan to work, in order for them to create a stable timeline where the human and monster war never happened, they need to use our abilities as beings from higher reality to restabilize Deltarune's reality after they have already made their alterations to it. To banish darkness through sealing dark fountains, which is an ability only we the player have. This is why the player is so important to Gaster, so important to Deltarune. A big question that Chapter 5 left me with is what Ralsei meant when he said, following the rules. Whatever these rules are, they're making him hold back his true power, which at first doesn't seem to make any sense. Even when fighting against the Roaring Knight, Ralsei still holds back. So whatever these rules are, the consequences of breaking them are even worse than letting the knight get away. What could possibly be more important than that? Keeping the player connected. Sans is aware of the completionist nature of us the player, of our desire to be challenged. These rules are put in place so that the player actually has a challenge to overcome. It prevents us from having infinite money, it prevents us from skipping puzzles, it prevents us from having overpowered party members, which we all see subtly broken through Chapter 5. I know it might seem like Ralsei overreacted to Flowery's nonsense, but it's honestly justified that he'd be so adamant to ensure the player, the seeming only hope to save the world, doesn't grow bored and just leave, or resort to making bad choices simply out of curiosity. It's Ralsei's job to keep Deltarune a game to us, because if he doesn't, everything will fall apart. In order for Gaster's plan to work, in order to save Deltarune, the player must stay connected, and march along their intended path. This is why Gaster connected us to Deltarune. This is why we need to seal the fountains. This is why, as I've said before, the final tragedy of the prophecy is the total banishment of the Dark World, the banishment of Castletown, the sealing of the Grand Fountain. This has always been Gaster's plan, to create a stable timeline where the human and monster war never happened. This is the new future he looks forward to creating with us. When it's put like this, Gaster's motivations seem quite reasonable, right? All he wants is to give his world its happiest outcome. However, of course, this plan has some unfortunate consequences. The Dark World, the place where your dreams come to life, must be banished. Even Gaster himself knows that this is unfortunate. That's why he calls it the final tragedy. I've gotten some backlash from people saying that the banishment of the Dark World isn't tragic enough to be the prophecy's final tragedy, but truly, the Dark World is the reason behind everything good that happens in Deltarune. My Lost Dreams video makes it very clear that all of the positive character development we've seen so far is a direct result of the Dark World adventures. Isn't it ironic? In Gaster's attempt at giving his world its happiest outcome, he ended up glimpsing an even better world, one that gives people true freedom, one that allows them to choose who they are, one where their choices matter, one where they can live their dreams. Despite all the great things the Dark World has done for Deltarune, Gaster is still determined to settle for his original plan. I guess he isn't a fan of scope creep. This is kind of like the Lego movie in a way if you really think about it. Gaster uses the reality-bending force of darkness to create his ideal reality, but when others start altering reality themselves, he cuts everyone off and just craggles everything. All this being said, how do we fix this? Gaster isn't exactly wrong to want to banish the Dark World. I'm sure the Roaring is a true threat. So how do we hold on to our dreams of the Dark World without poking too many holes in the reality of the Light World? This is what I believe to be at the core of Deltarune's conflict. This is the big question we're going to have to answer, or else we're doomed to a world blinded by light or flooded by darkness. You'll never truly live your dreams if you hide from reality, and you'll never overcome your fear of the dark just by turning on the light. When you're stuck between the balance of absolute light and absolute dark, between what is real and what is not, what's the alternative? Well, what if we didn't have to think in absolutes? Deltarune is divided into two worlds, the Light World and the Dark World. When faced with this division, and the conflict that arises from it, I question why they're divided in the first place. Why must reality not be our dreams? Why must our dreams not be reality? Because they're complete opposites, right? Light cannot be dark and dark cannot be light. Well, think about it like this. If light shows you a reality you cannot accept, you block it out to cast a shadow, an absence of truth where you can make your own truth, a sharp and instantaneous transition between reality and your dreams, a duality where you can either avoid reality to live your dreams, or you can give up on your dreams to be in touch with reality. Except, this transition is not so clearly defined. If you look close enough, you will see it. The subtle gradient that stands in between, the edge of the shadow, where reality and dream meet, the penumbra phantasm, the faintest margin where light and dark combine, the slightest point where dreams are real and reality is a dream. That is our solution. The truth is, the Dark World is not an illusion. The true illusion is the false division of light and dark, the false division of reality and dreams, the failure to see the fine details. The truth is, your dreams do not exist in some alternate world fundamentally opposite from reality. Both reality and dreams are merely assertions of the truth, ones that you make yourself and ones that are made for you. They are determinations that you interpret with your choice. Sure, some truths are easier to accept than others, some truths are harder to believe in than others, and with some it seems like you have no choice at all whether or not you can accept or believe them. But realize, you always have a choice, even if it may feel as though you're believing in something impossible, or refusing to accept something undeniable. With enough determination, the truth is always something that you can control, for better and for worse. Reality is the truth that you are given, and dreams are the truth that you make. The truth that you are given can be the truth that you make. You don't need to hide from reality to live your dreams. You can make your dreams reality. You can make reality your dream. Anything that tells you otherwise, anything that tells you that reality and dreams are irreconcilable, is a lie. A hidden lie in the twilight between light and dark. The lie that dreaming requires a separation from reality. The twilight reverie. If we hope to save Deltarune, if we hope to truly save the worlds, there is only one way. At Shadow's edge, shatter the twilight reverie. Only then may your dreams become reality, and your reality may become your dreams. You know what I'm gonna say. Deltarune is real! I might have gotten a little carried away there. While I do have confidence in this theory, it does not give the full picture. As we can see in Undertale, the plan of Deltarune to give Undertale its happiest outcome didn't work out as it should have. Something went wrong with Gaster's experiments, and he fell into his own creation, leaving Sans and someone else who I've neglected to mention with nothing but a broken machine. We've seen Undertale's happiest outcome. Neither of them could fix the machine, no matter how hard they tried. No one can. Hi, I'm Toby. So then, what happened to Deltarune? Or what is going to happen? What happened to Gaster's experiments? Did he go too far? Did he become so enraptured by the power of this anomaly that he allowed it to do something terrible, just to see if it could? I don't know. Or what if, because Deltarune is an Undertale timeline altered with darkness, it behaves like a dark world? Wouldn't Deltarune have a will like the will of a fountain? If so, what happens to the characters that do not reflect this will of this entire reality? Are they forgotten? I don't know. Is that what happened to Gaster? Another Gaster? A Gaster? I don't know. Whatever the consequences of this mistake are, or were, or will be, they've been scattered across time and space, along with him. Perhaps some of those consequences landed in the past where we can already see them. Perhaps with them we can prevent this mistake from ever happening. Perhaps someone doesn't want us to prevent it. But honestly, I don't know at this point. This situation is riddled with paradoxes that I've chosen not to mention for the sake of my own mental health. There are a lot of implications to writing time travel into a story, which makes me question how Deltarune's future, or Undertale's past, or whatever, will or has already played out. Which brings me to something I want to make very clear. No matter how right any of this turns out to be, none of it will do justice to what Deltarune actually has in store for us. Whether I just spoiled a huge part of the story, or I'm just completely delusional, I'm going to enjoy Deltarune either way, and no theory will ever replace that. Even if I can vaguely predict what's going to be said, even if I can press the same keys, Deltarune has something beyond the notes that I cannot play. After all, I'm not Toby Fox. I'm Player Carter. I'm never going to give you the experience Deltarune is going to give us, and it's only becoming more and more clear to me that these theories are only feeding off of that. Don't get me wrong, this channel has been a wonderful creative outlet for me that I intend on continuing. I have lots more to say about Deltarune. It's just that these creations have all been built out of appreciation for Deltarune, and not out of pure expression of my own ideas. That doesn't mean that they're bad, all I'm saying is that I'd like to express my own original creations, though I honestly don't know exactly how I want to do that yet, and school's starting soon, so don't hold your breath. By the way, I have a Discord server that I'm quite active on if you'd like to check that out. I'm currently notified for every message that's sent in it, so I challenge you to make it active enough that I have to disable that. Feel free to share ideas or creations or whatever. It's always nice when there's something new to talk about. Anyways, I guess that's everything I have to say. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to support it however you'd like. And, as always, I will see you in a month. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? The way he does this is by actually playing Fortnite, you know. Sure, some truths are easier to accept than others. Some truths are harder to believe in than others. If we hope to save Deltarune, if we chope at Shadow's edge, shatter the Twilight Reverie.
All this is true because it rhymes.